Shalom. Oops. Oh, you're good. All right. But I wasn't on mute, right? I was good. So he said, the shalom lo higiu. And not only that, so that which he gave to the public, it belongs there, but he can't take back that which the public already took. In other words, now they have two paths, and he just hurt himself. Yeah, oops is right. And derech hayachid stam, if there's a path for an individual, for a person, that's daled amos. That's usually the width of daled amos. Right, derech harabim, if it's a place of a public path, that's sheish amos, that's 16 amos. Derech hamelech, if the king is passing through, ein lo shear, right? There is no shear; they can trample and go as wide as they need. And similarly, derech hakever, also when they're going to go ahead for a levaya, then mean malav the mace. For covet mace, there is ein lo shear, there is no certain measurement. And Hamaimed, and Hamaimed, which we'll soon see as to this ceremony that was performed basically after the after the levaya, similar to the shuras they do now. And Tzipori Amro base arba kabin. The space for that Hamaimed is as those that the judges in Tzipori they ruled an area that one could go ahead and plant 4 kav of grain. Fine. Zok the Gemara. So amai shalolo higiu, right? So I understand why that which was his, right? He can't take back. Right? Let him go ahead and and sit on by his field with a stick and whack enough. So and whack people they want to go in there. So shmamina, right? Should we learn from right? That a person can't take the law into his own hands. If he would walk up say in the place of loss. Now there's certain times where if one does not sort of take the law in his own hands, he can't go ahead and get something back because he doesn't have certain whatever it is evidence for Beis Din, where Beis Din doesn't have the power to do it. So there's certain times one can take it in his own hands. So what he's saying over here, he can't do it. Should we learn out from this case that he's not allowed to take the din in his own hand because he can't take the public to Beis Din, right? Who's the representative? No, the reason why it doesn't work because he might go ahead and give them a bad path or a crooked path or something bad. So therefore, it's not apples to apples. So therefore, we don't allow a person to go ahead and make a trade because there is no other party on the other end to make sure that it's fair. And Rava says, yes, that's the reason why it doesn't work. But if it was an apples to apples trade, according to Rava, in the name of Rava, it actually would work. And our mission is referring to a case where it gave him a bad path. And Rav Ashi Amar, and turn the page, Rav Ashi Amar told me not sad, anything that's on the side is considered to be Kalsani. Because once you change the path, it's obviously not going to be good for some people. They'd be on the other side. So if you move it to the left, so the people on the right are going to be upset. And if you move it to the right, the people on the left are being upset. So therefore, since it's automatically not going to be an apples to apples trade, therefore he can't go ahead and take that back. So Gemara says, okay, if that's the case, so why don't you say, okay, simply, fine, I get it. You can't go ahead and take back the public way. He made a mistake and let him take it back, right? Why can't he do that? Right. So Gemara answers, how many? Whose opinion is this? This is Rabbi Eliezer. His opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Did Tani, we learn Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Eliezer. Rabin Shabaru Derech Liasmam. If the public chose a path for themselves, Mashabaru Baru, that which they selected is theirs. Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabin Gazlan. I mean, what do you mean the public does? The public decides, you know what? Bill Gates has a nice house. This is now our new public park, right? In his house. Well, there's certain eminent domains, but you have to be able to establish it. You can't just, the rabbi gets on him. So I'm Rav Gidel. I'm a Rav Kigon Sha'avdolem Derech Ba'isa Sada. Right. In other words, where let's say there was a path before, but they forgot where the path was. They didn't realize there was once upon a time a path, and now we don't know where it exactly is. It got overgrown, it got flooded, and now we don't know where it is. So Gemara says, Ihachi. I am a Rav Huna, I'm a Rav, Rabbi Eliezer. Why the halacha says not like a Rabbi Eliezer? If they're going back to take a path that was once there, why can't they take it? So Gemara answers, man the masniha, loy masniha, right? The one who says we're specifically talking about a case where they didn't have the path, he was the one that didn't say that it was referring to Rabbi Eliezer. And the one who says that it were stam that we're talking about a path. So therefore, in other words, when there wasn't a path, so that was the case. where with whatever they picked, they they made a kinyan. He was the one who said, if that's the case, that it wasn't that case. That was the one who says the halacha is not like Rabbi Yezer. So either the halacha is like Rabbi Yezer because there's a lost path, or there wasn't a lost path, and the rabbin can't just go ahead and take a path out of your property. Well, time of my Mishum Rav Yehuda. What's the reason why? Because Rav Yehuda, Dama Rav Yehuda, so Rabbim, also the Kalklo. Once the public has gone ahead and they've set boundaries of this area, then you can't go ahead and break down the boundaries that the Rabbim went ahead and created. Rabbi Yezer, the Rabbim Mai Kanua. So how do they go ahead and acquire? What type of kinyan are they going to make? So the answer is Behilucha. Simply walking. If they walk through there, and let's say the owner is there and he doesn't make some sort of mocha, right? So therefore, basically, he's giving that area to the rights of the way to the rabbin. The Tanu and Rabbi Sahalach, well, the Ark of Arach, a person goes ahead and walks the length and the width. So Kana, Makamilucho, he has acquired the area that he walked. Even Rabbi Yezer, there's a opinion of Rabbi Yezer. Walking is nothing until you go ahead and you make some sort of improvement or some sort of change or something, or you put the boundary markers or something to the land. But simply walking, that is not a kinyan for the rabbin. However, I'm Rabbi Yezer, my time Rabbi Yezer, what's the pasuk says, right? Hashem said to Avram Avinu, go ahead and walk its length, its width, right? Because I gave it to you. He says, how do you acquire it? Walk it. So walking is a way of acquiring it. I'm sorry?
You didn't have to do anything.
Right.
You gave them.
True, but even when you get a gift, you have to make a kinyan, right? You have to some way of acquiring. Just me saying it's yours doesn't make it yours, right? You have to do something. It has to be some sort of transaction that gives it.
Have Rabbi Lozer saying name of Rabbi Yezer for you don't usually have those too often.
Yeah, Rabbi Lozer, yeah. So yeah, he's explaining Rabbi Yezer, yeah, no relation.
No, I'm saying you don't see it too often that they're together.
So Gemara says, Rabbanan, what do we want to say? Over there, Hashem wanted to make it easy for his chaviyus Avinu to come early. In other words, that it'll be easy for his children to go ahead and acquire it. Therefore, there was no need for any other type of kinyan. Just merely walking, they would go ahead and acquire it.
You don't want to I don't know if they walk all much bigger land, so visuals.
Well, we do know that. I mean, if you have a certain area, you can only do a kinyan on chazak on one part, right? But over here, didn't. In other words, even the areas were separated, you didn't have to go ahead and make a separate, kinyan or improvement. However, let's say in a path in a vineyard, but over there, there is no other usage over there except for walking in a vineyard between the vines. So therefore, in a case of vineyard where there is no creating, any sort of chazaka, therefore in that case, walking would be sufficient. And Kiyasu the coming to Rav Yitzchak Barami Amar Lahu Havu Le Kihechi Didara Tuna Bishivusa. So they said, in other words, give him something, an area that the person is able to go ahead and put a load upon his shoulders, right? And if she was a vahadar and turn around, right? Basically, the path has to be wide enough for that. For Amanella, the Simon Mechitzasa, where this is only talking about that the path has to be wide enough, let's say where there's walls there. But there's no walls there, and therefore there's no width requirement as long as your feet can walk. As long as you can just take steps, that is wide enough. And since there's no walls restricting how wide the area is that you're carrying, it just has to be long enough, wide enough for a person to go ahead and walk. But if there's a fence there, then it has to be able for a person to carry a load and be able to turn around. And derech hayachid, we said derech hayachid is dalad amos. Tana acherim say kadei sheyavor chomer b'maso. In order for a donkey to be able to go ahead and carry a load, that's how wide a derech hayachid should be, which is dalad amos. And Amar Rav Huna, Susie, scratch that. No. Take that off the record. Take that off the record. So Tana acherim, we said derech hayachid. Let's say I sell you a path for you to walk through my yard. So that was it. I didn't specify anything else. So it's dalad amos. So says the Acherim, Satana Acherim, the Acherim say, Kadei Shiavor Chamar Masel, in order for a donkey to be able to go ahead and pass. And Amar Rav Huna, and Rav Huna says, like the Acherim, that's for a donkey to pass. I learned Tana Dainigola. It's a Shnei Gemadim Mechza. It's basically 2.5 amos. Rav Huna halacha daina gailan. Rav Huna over there said halacha like daina gailan. Rav Huna halacha acher. Now halacha is like acher, which is the amount that a donkey could carry. So my answer is that is the same share. Basically, the amount that the width of the donkey carrying is approximately 2.5 amos. Which is like a gamda, which is some say is a little smaller or than an amma or is an amma. So nevertheless, it's 2.5 amos, and that was Rav Huna says halacha is like the acher. And derech harabim sheishis reyama, the path of the rabbim is 16 amos. So tanarabanan derech hayochid arba amos. So the Brisa says, so if I sell a path for individual use,
did we say it was 2.5, or did we say it's down amos?
Well, the acherim said 2.5.
Oh, I see.
And we had another Brisa that says 2.5, and Rav Huna passed like 2.5. Our Mishnah says 4. Yeah. Right? This Brisa says 4. Right, so Tanabana derech yachid arba amos is 4. Derech meir leir, let's say from one city to another, let's shtickle a highway. Shmein amos, that's 8. It has to be a little wider for people to basically, cross paths. Derech harabim, the path of the for the public. Turn the page. Sheisrei amos is 16 amos. Derech arei miklat, for the going to arei miklat. That is shloshim. That's like a double rishus harabim. It's 32 amos to the road to the arei miklat for a person to go ahead and get refuge there. And Amar Rav Huna ma'ikra. How do you know what's the pasuk? The pasuk says the tachlo haderech. It says the word haderech, right? Derech haderech. It's like a double lashon, plural. 16 times 2, right? 16 amos times 2 is 32 amos. And derech hamelech and no shear, and the path of the king when the king is traveling, there is no shear of width. Shamelech parades together. He's allowed to go. They're allowed to push down fences. And we do not go ahead and stop the king. And derech hakever and no shear, also for a kvura, we do not go ahead and create a shear. Mishum yikar the shichla, in order to honor the dead. It you say, oh, you got to stay in the path or whatever it is. You got to be narrow or not enough people. So therefore, for derech chavod, we allowed to go ahead and go. And amami danit tzipori amru bas kamas. We said in the maimed over there, that space. If I go ahead and purchase a maimed from somebody, and it doesn't specify how much, it's the area is basically the amount that one can go ahead and plant 4 kav of grains. So Tanarabana Hamecha Kivra, let's say a guy has a kever and says, you know what, I'm going to live forever. He sells his kever, right? Or he sells derech kivura, or the path of his kever, makom ma'amad, or the pace that they were supposed to have, his maimed, after his burial, or base of spade, or the area where they're going to go ahead and eulogize him, and then the guy dies. So his family members can go ahead and basically go to the buyer and says, yeah, I know he sold it to you, too bad. We had, for mishum, because the pagam mishpacha, this guy basically says, you know what, I know I had a plot, I want to sell it, I need the cash to go ahead and bet on the White Sox, right, or whatever it is. And we say, you know what, too bad for covenant mace, even though this guy made poor decisions in his life, we bury him in that burial pot. Now, somebody bought it, so the family will have to go ahead and reimburse that guy. And right? We don't go ahead and have less than 7 standings and sittings. These are mothers we're talking about for a dead. Keneged, why 7? It says Hevel, Havolim, Amar Koheles, Hevel, Havolim, Hakol Hevel. All right, so it says Hevel, right, is 1. Havolim is 2, so it's 1, 2, 1, 2, which is 6, plus Hakol Hevel, that's 7. 7 times mentions the word Hevel, nothingness, futility, right? So, that's what this world is. And therefore, basically, there are 7 maimados that we do. And what are these maimados we're talking about? So Amar Ravacha, Berei, the Rav, Ravashi, Hechi, Avdi. Somebody can tell you the Bryce, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, so it says Rabbi Yehuda. In Yehuda B'Shaina, in the beginning, they wouldn't have less than 7 ma'amados with Moshavos, the mace, for the standings and sittings for the mace. Kagon. So what happens? The families come to the base of first, they bury the person, and they say, Amdu, Yikarim, Amdu, right? So after, they sit down, they mourn, they say, get up, dear ones, get up. And they begin to proceed, and then they say, Shvu, Yikarim, Shvu, then they say, stop, sit down. And then they sit, and then they mourn with them, and they tell them then to get up, and then they get up, and they proceed to the procession, and so on and so forth. 7 times. So, Im Kain, after Shabbos, if that was just it, then they were able to go ahead and do it on Shabbos. soon have to understand that statement. Oh, we'll have to explain that statement.
Oh, go ahead.
So Achte, the Rav Papa, so the sister of Rav Papa, having a sibling, the Rav Avia, was married to Rav Avia. So I guess Papa, right, was the father-in-law. So Rav Papa, his sister married Rav Avia, so Shchiva. So he died. So Avle Ma'amad Ma'ishav. So he did this Ma'amad and Ma'ishav. So Amar Rav Yosef Tav B'Tarti. He actually made two mistakes while doing it. So Tav, first of all, his first mistake was Shein Aisin Ella B'Krevim. You only do it with the family around. And he had many others do this. My mother's Vitana, excuse me, Vita, and he also made another mistake. Shein Aisin Ella B'Yam Rishon. You only do on the day one of the burial. Who Avad B'Yam Sheni on the second day. And he actually made another mistake. Shein in Ela basic first, only supposed to do it in the basic first, not outside. Who was over here, and he did in the city. And Rav Amar Namito, he also made another mistake. Shein in Ela b'makam shenagu, right? And they only do it in a town where it was nothing to do it. Where the minute was to do it there, but hospital no. Over there, it wasn't. That wasn't the custom. So Meisve, I don't understand what we said before. That Mayor pointed out Amalo in Cain after Shabbos Moses Cain. The basic kvaros. If you say the basic kvaros would be Yom Echad, has to be the first day. Basic kvaros, but Shabbos, my boy. Why are they in the basic kvaros? We don't do burials in basic kvaros. In the basic kvaros, why is it day one? If it's day one, why are you talking about Shabbos? So our answer is Beira Smuchla Kvaros. We're talking about a city that was close to the basic kvaros. Damitu ben Shmashes. In other words, basically that if they buried it right before Shabbos, so even technically it's the new day. Nevertheless, they're walking back. They would still do those processions, even if it was potentially beyond Shabbos. Fine. Nine Mishnah. Let's do one more Mishnah. Complete. Nishvas Dvarlea. Bas Yoshua Zelek Neshama Shamaliya. Okay. So Hamaycher Makoim Lechaveroi Laasas Lekever. So speaking of which, a person sells some land to go ahead and make a kever. Now a kever is not just one grave. We'll soon see. So too, I'm going to make you a kever. It was like a family kever. So what did he do? Right? So Dalit Amos Al Sheish. So basically in the ground, there would be an area. Right? Imagine walking down into the ground. There'd be an area of 4 by 6. So a square of 4 by 6 where you can walk into. So let's say, a rectangle. I say a square. Yeah. So I meant it actually was. So
because you can play pool good then.
It's just a simple polygram. Right? Anyway, so 4 by 6, and so let's say we're underground now. Let's say that the ground is this ceiling here. So we go into this chamber. And what's in this chamber? I said Taicha Shalmara Amos 4 by 6. And open into it is Shmeina Kuchin. Right over there is basically there's 8 what's it called? What the crypts or not crypts? The catacomb, whatever it is, where you can basically put the bodies in. Holes in the wall. 8 holes in the wall, we'll call those, right? For simple terms.
Yeah.
So there's going to be 3 on one side, 3 on the other side, and there's like the entrance to get into this area, right? So you walk downstairs to go into this area, and then facing there is, so there's 2 there, and there's 3 here and 3 here. That's a total of 8. The kuchan arbe, and these kuchan itself, these holes in the wall where you slide bodies in, is archan ab amos. The length of it is 4 amos, which is long enough for a person. Each one's roughly, 1 and 3, whatever, 20 inches, 24 inches, whatever it is, right? So it's long enough. The Rayman Shevin, and the height is 7, right? So even the fatter one, 7 tefachim high. So we got wide, so long, and now that's how wide. The Reichman, its width is Shisha, is 6. So it's 4 across, 6 tefachim by 7 tefachim. Turn the page. All right. And these pictures are going to be helpful, actually. Very cute pictures. And first Rabbi Shimon argues in the first part, he says, Teicha Shalmara Sheish Amos Al Shmona. But it's not 4 by 6 rectangle, right? It's a 6 by 8. And open up inside is there's 13 of those hole in the walls to slide in the bodies. Arba Mikan. So let's go back to the picture. Let's do in the scenario. There's 4 on one side. Arba Mikan. 4 on the other side. The Shleisha Kenegdan and 3 across. That's 4, 4, 3, 11. And then there's 1 is basically there's two more, like diagonal, either from the entrance, or we'll soon see another way, but there's another two that basically from the side where he comes in from those angles. So that'll be a total of 13. However, the Isa Chatzir now working backwards. You make a Chatzir al Piamara, right? So remember we said we just walked down under the ground, right, into this little area. So if you go back up this tunnel, there's like a courtyard leading into the tunnel. So it's like the courtyard to enter this little crypt down there, right? So there's a Chatzir al Piamara, Sheish al Sheish. That is 6 by 6, Kamali Hamita, right, which was sufficient to go ahead and have the Mita, then people of the Kovra and those who bury it. Now the courtyard is actually connected to two of these crypts that we're talking about, right? According to the first opinion, the crypt is 4 by 6 with 8 openings. So if you look at that top picture in the Rashbam, right, you'll see the chutzner in the middle, and then it's opened up into two crypts. Imagine you go down into those crypts. So there's a chutzner, and then on one side is 4 by 6 with its 8 openings, and the other side is 4 by 6 with its also 8 areas to go ahead and bury. So that probably not. And the editors. So Rabbi Shimon Omer, right? So Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Shimon says, no, it's not two errands, right? It's actually not. Rabbi Shimon is one who says there's openings. He says no, and they're not two crypts. There's actually 4, right? There's 4 to each side. Now, if you look at the other picture, so you see there's a 6 by 6 little square in the middle. Then you see north, south, east, and west of it. There's all this 6 by 8, which we saw earlier, and each one has the 13, right? The 13, the thing of note to notice in those pictures is the 4 and 4 and 3, and the two diagonals are not the side of where you walked in, but the opposite entrance, which the Gemara will discuss. It also depends, this is how to maximize to get 13, but let's say the rock is weak and it will crumble and you can't have too many, then you might not be able to go ahead and fit, 4 by 4 by 3. Rather, it could be less, and we'll have to see the Gemara. We'll stop here. Everybody have a wonderful day. Have a good Erev Rosh Hashanah, and have a good